Hey man, welcome to this new episode of Beacon Podcast. There has been a lot of talk recently regarding conducting census in India, which has already been delayed, about the delimitation, and then the women's reservation bill that will follow that, and also incorporating the caste census, the role of digital census in this time, and you know, the kind of aging population that we are having, how it will impact democracy in the future. Hot topics, so let's dive into it. Well, see, India had a census in 2011, and India hasn't had a census since then. And today, the population of India is such that it's crossed China, right? So, India is the largest population in the world. Now, we still have 543 seats in the Lok Sabha, in the Council of People, lower house of the Parliament, and they are fixed in accordance with a map which was constructed in 1971 according to the 1971 census population. And the reason why it was frozen till that time, and even it was decided that in 2001 it would be revised, but again it was frozen up to 2026. The reason why it has been freezing is because the southern states have managed to control the population somewhat using family planning methods, and the northern states have not been that good in this regard. And so, if you allot parliamentary seats based on the population, you will definitely discount the South Indian states. They will lose representation and decision making, and representative democracy will be at threat. The very same reason is there today, which is why the South Indian states are hesitant for delimitation to take place. Because once that happens, northern states will have whole lot of seats, and Kerala is one state whose seats would actually decrease after delimitation. Imagine from 20 to 19, it would actually decrease, and the increase in the other South Indian states will be very marginal. So they are pretty tied up in this regard, and there has been one study by Shruti Rajagopal in which she found out that one Bihar MP today, although nothing has been officially taken out, but one Bihar MP today represents 3 million people, whereas one Kerala MP represents 1.5, that is roughly half of the 3 million people, 1.5 million people. Now I'm telling approximate numbers, but just imagine that one Bihar MP represents 3 million people, double what a Kerala MP does. Where is the one man, one vote? Where is equitable representation? Is representative democracy taking a fall? These are the questions that we have to remind ourselves of. And not just this, even the finance commission devolution happens on basis of a number of parameters, and population is one parameter for horizontal devolution among states. So that is peaking a lot of South Indian states. And by the way, the TFR of India has gone below the replacement level of 2.1, and it's now 1.9. But the northern Indian states, many of them have more than 2.1. The southern Indian states, all of them have less than 2. So it's a pretty uneven situation. It's not that the entire India is having the same problem. Northern Indian states need population control. The southern Indian states need population revival. It's a twin problem that India is facing for the first time. Otherwise, population control was the only thing in the debates. But is South India becoming a Japan or China? Well, we have to see. But the population census has not been done in 2021. It might be done the next year in 2025, and that will precede any delimitation exercise that might happen. All right? And only when the delimitation exercise happens will the women's reservation bill, the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, will come into picture and into force, otherwise not. And we already know the number of women in our parliament is pretty less, right? So only when this population census is done. By the way, there's one more thing I would like to say. there has been a lot of talk to incorporate the caste census within the population census. You see, we depend on the knowledge of the access of basic amenities, housing, food, education, and others. How much of these amenities are being accessible to different castes and different marginalized groups of the society? I mean, we know these things by dint of the NSS surveys, by dint of the Socioeconomic Caste Census 2011, and various other, the Periodic Labor Force Survey, many others. But they are not up to the mark, they are not accurate, they don't capture the informal sector, they are not exhaustive, there are so many deficiencies. And therefore, a caste census is being demanded by various sections of people. Something which was done in 1931. Of course, it's not an easy thing. You have to literally divide the scheduled caste category, the scheduled tribe category, the OBC category into several castes and jatis, and then find out where each of them stand in the educational sector, where each of them stand in the job market, where each of them stand in health parameters, in access to basic amenities, housing. So it's a pretty exhaustive thing and expensive as well. But it's not that we are doing it for the first time. We have the foundational data from 1931, which is there with the Archaeological Survey of India. So it is a decision that the government has to take. But there are a lot of positives. Of course, caste hierarchy has been a system which is entrenched in the Indian society, creating systemic inequalities. And if you do a caste census, it is very much in accordance with Article 15, Clause 4 and 16, Clause 4, which empower the states to make any policy or provision for the advancement of the socio-economic backward classes. So it's possible, and what it will basically do is that it will quantify the disparities on various fronts among people. And then you can have evidence-based policy making. You can have targeted public expenditure, something which is being followed even in Tamil Nadu today. Bihar had conducted a caste census. Telangana will conduct a caste census. So various states are doing it. It's only that a pan-India caste census is not done. It's like saying that India doesn't have a beef ban law, but a lot of states have in India. Similarly, India as a whole doesn't have a caste census, but there are so many exercises which enumerate the castes of the people living in a household, right? So the case for caste census is made. One more thing is there. This case is strengthened, especially after the Devinder Singh case of 2024, which overturned the E.V. Chinnaiya case of 2004 and allowed subclassification within the scheduled castes. We all know that the Indira Sahni case allowed the creamy and non-creamy layer classification back in 1993, but only within OBCs. And something similar might happen even in SCs. It has not happened, but a lot of judges individually commented after the Devinder Singh case that there is a possibility of that happening. By the way, subclassification within scheduled castes is possible, and the state governments can do for targeted benefit allocation. And they said the scheduled caste is not like a monolith, right? It's not a single unit. So that's actually something which can be translated into the OBC category also, because in 2018 we had a Rohini Commission which said that 97% of all the benefits in terms of government jobs and education is going to 25% of the OBCs, not the 75% of the other OBCs. Now, that's despite the creamy and non-creamy categorization. So, subclassification has a possibility there as well. Now, how will we go about subclassification if we don't have the exact status, socioeconomic status of different castes? So there is a case for caste census. However, given the politics, the polarization, the identity politics, there's a vast possibility of its misuse. So, and by the way, where will the data be? Will it be publicized? Will it stay with the government? If it is publicized, will it be misused by a lot of nefarious elements? Will it be used for polarization, communal profiling? And will it come at odds with the data privacy law of the country? So there are a whole lot of things which the government has to decide in this regard. And if it has to happen, it has to happen along with the population census. Ain't in no way it can be even financially affordable if one conducts caste census separate to the population census that is ostensibly going to happen next year. And one more thing that I'd like to say, especially why the South Indian states are so peaked. It's not just because of all of these things, but because they are facing a demographic bottleneck. Their TFR has gone down and a lot of immigrants are coming. And still the TFR is not above the replacement levels. There have been calls by various people in South India, in various states, to increase the TFR. But I don't think that the South Indian states should be punished for having proper family planning over the last 50 to 60 years. And they should not suffer in terms of reduced finance commission devolutions, in terms of reduced representation in the parliament, or in any other terms, in terms of, reduced availability of workers and relying on immigrant workers from, say, North India or anywhere else. I think there should be a very balanced planning in this regard. There have been lifestyle changes, there have been immigration, there have been, a lot of social changes, infertility issues are also there. But most importantly, I believe, is the economic cause. The inflation, high cost of living is literally making it difficult to raise children properly. And one reason is what I call the Tokyo curse. I was looking at a documentary in which the decreasing fertility rate of Japan was being discussed. And one of the reasons which was put out in that video was that the development is so centralized across Tokyo that the real estate prices have been beefed up. You can't even imagine. So that people can't buy a decent home. Couples can't buy a decent home. They don't have access to good social security. The moment they want to go to the suburbs, they will lose their job. So because development and opportunities are so centralized, same thing in India. We have certain centers of urbanization and development and job opportunities. So the moment you have decentralized development and urbanization, you'll be able to tackle this situation. And government incentives alone can't help change the habits of the society. You need to have decentralized, not just urbanization. There's one more thing. India has been suffering from premature deindustrialization. It has had a non-industrial growth. So give it industrial growth. Industrial growth doesn't happen in the cities alone. It happens across the hinterland. And it gives a lot of opportunities for the ordinary people. And it will help curbing inflation because it will cut down on imports. And it will give better economic opportunities. There are a whole lot of advantages that you can expect from this decentralization. And there's one last point with which I'd like to close, and that's the aging population. If the population of India reduces, what's the problem, right? There ain't any problem. And that's what India has been aspiring to do since the last several decades. But the aging population, the proportion of aging population will increase. What that will do is it will increase the dependent population. And the proportion of the working age population will reduce. What it will effectively do is that it will reduce the purchasing power and the demands of the population. Old people don't have too much demand. and they might have better contribution to the GDP than today, given AI and automation and the increasing role of brain work. But they will still be having less demands, and they will have health issues, social security requirements, which will give a burden on the government. And it's not sustainable. We're seeing that in China. Okay? So if we have less population, but the proportion of working age population is more, there's no problem. So that will happen over time. But if we pass through this period of demographic winter, it might be painful for economic and social terms. So there's a whole lot of debate going on across this, and that actually is a complex problem, and it has to have tailor-made solutions. So let's see how things go about. But creativity is required in the job market, in economic opportunities, and decentralized development. That's the end line that I would like to say. But keep following the Beacon Podcast. We'll come up with more. Thank you.